In today's video, we're going to discuss the importance of your backswing plane, and I'm going to give you some real simple checkpoints and drills to improve yours. Make sure you check out this video. The trigger. Jon Watts here from the TruGolf Academy. You've joined me out on the golf course, and as mentioned in the intro, today's video is all going to be about the backswing plane and how the backswing is actually going to help you create a better downswing, a better overall golf swing to improve your quality of strike, your consistency of strike. So it's often an overlooked area, but John Jacobs, a very, very famous golf coach, used to say if you're trying to work on your downswing, you've missed something on your backswing. And I'm not suggesting, I'm sure John wasn't suggesting that, you know, as coaches, we never work on a downswing or impact position. Of course we do, I have plenty of videos about it, but having your backswing in a good position at the top makes it simpler. Now, the argument, and I know I'm going to get this, is, of course, you know, there are elite golfers here, there's elite golfers here that make the right movement. We're talking about making the golf swing simpler. So 100%, if you get a talented golfer in a more upright position, a flatter position, they will find a way on the downswing to get the club into the right slot. And if they can repeat that consistently under pressure, why bother changing? And I completely agree with that. But I'm going to talk about some faults I see in the backswing and what it tends to cause, because these are quite common faults that I see day in, day out while coaching golfers. So one of the most common faults I see, and I've shoved a stick in the ground here, so a common fault I tend to see is the club working too much in behind the person on the backswing. So the club tends to get in, the pressure might go to the toes, they might compensate and start to lean forwards to maintain balance, but the club tends to work in. Often the face gets open, which is a very destructive thing if it's still open on the downswing. But when the club goes around, what tends to happen is the player completes their shoulder turn too early. So we want to maximize shoulder turn, but we want to do it gradually all the way to the top. What tends to happen when the club works too much around the body is the shoulders have turned, you know, half to 3/4, yet the arms have only done 1/4 of the swing. So often what happens there is the player then lifts to the top, and I just teaching a couple of golfers very recently who make this very move. The club goes in behind them too early, they lift to the top, and as they lift to the top, backside goes forwards, potentially head goes up as well. So it's the start of early extension. Now, one player in particular, his hips have gone forwards and he would hit the ball out the heel, but what he learns to do is compensate and bring his arms inwards towards his body. In fact, a couple of players I teach do this, arms in as a compensation. The other compensations we could make for that loss of posture is our handle to go higher into impact, our body to start to straighten. And it's going to really have an effect on quality of strike and the speed when we don't get that extension of arms into impact. So it definitely has an effect on speed and power for these particular players. So what I'd like to see in the first movement, is in the takeaway, is the lead arm relatively connected across my chest. In the first takeaway position, when so the club is parallel to the ground, I'd like to see the club just slightly outside my hands. Level with my hands so the shaft is parallel to my toe line would be absolutely fine. I just don't want that club working too much in. At halfway back as a checkpoint, what I'd like to see is my hands roughly in the center of my chest, the club shaft just below my trail shoulder, my right shoulder for me as a right-handed player, so through the top of my bicep here. Again, we don't want to get that club too flat. And that's one of the exercises I've just done here with a tour stick in the ground. If you're on a driving range, you can simply put this through a range bucket and play around with the distance. I could go a little bit further forwards if I wanted to make some downswing moves as well. But the idea is to try and keep the club just outside the red cane here, the alignment stick. In that first movement, you can see that's not me pushing my arms out. That's me still connecting as I turn back. And you'll see now I've made 1/4 of a shoulder turn and 1/4 of a swing. So halfway back, if I follow that red line up, half a backswing, half a shoulder turn, okay? My hands are central in my chest. The club shaft is more through the center of my right bicep, so as I'd like to see. As a checkpoint at the top of the swing, I'd love to see, and I'm not quite down line for this camera, I'd love to see my left arm almost dissecting my right shoulder, my trail shoulder at the top. So if I can get this takeaway move, this first couple of feet, it should really start to set my backswing on plane, okay? So that's what I'm really looking for. And this is a great exercise to work on it. There's nothing stopping me if I had the ball a little bit further forwards. I could work on this for backswing and for downswing to feel like I shallow and get inside that movement as well. So I'm a little bit steeper back almost and shallower down. So I could use this in a number of ways, but I'm just really feeling it for that first movement and to halfway back. I don't want the club working too deep or my hands working too deep behind me, which is the very common fault I see, or perhaps the one or two golfers who create this real separation and very upright. The more common one, in my opinion, is the club working too much in behind. Now I could easily just use the tour stick in a slightly different way. So if I put a second golf ball a couple of foot behind and almost a club head's width on the way into the ball to target line, so slightly closer to my toe line. And I just use a cane up the side of the golf club. I'm just going to try and in the first movement, keep the cane in contact with my lead side, so it's running across my body here. And then to halfway back, I'm trying to almost point this alignment stick at that golf ball that's behind me here. Could be a tee peg, whatever you want as a marker point. So it's in contact with the side here. That's me at halfway back. If I continue that on, that's my top of the backswing plane. And from there, it is simpler, it is easier. It's not that we can't do it from a flatter position. You know, Matt Kuchar does it perfectly well, and you obviously see players higher, more extreme up this way, and they make changes, compensations, differences in the downswing, and they repeat it, and they repeat it consistently. Don't worry about it. If we can get the club into the right position here, and we don't have any of those faults, then by all means don't worry about the backswing. But the backswing can be a cause of a lot of problems on the downswing. And as I said, one of the most common faults is players losing their posture. And I often see when the club moves in behind, they then have to lift, and as they lift, the backside starts to move forward. So once you've done some of those drills and exercises, I'd perhaps just take it to the golf swing by rehearsing the first couple of feet of your golf swing. Now this is relevant with any golf club. I'm demonstrating it here with a mid-iron, but this is relevant with anything. So I'm setting up, I'm just going to rehearse, stop, check. So my check is lead arm feels like it's across the chest. The club is just slightly outside my hands. My leading edge of the golf club I would personally like to see closer to my spine angle. So I'm just rehearsing that movement before I go ahead and pull the trigger. Okay, so feel it, hit it. We don't want too long between the rehearsals and the actual hitting, but I see a lot of golfers, you know, doing this, and there's something to be said for moving, constantly moving, and stopping too much tension kicking in there. But, you know, I see a big fault with, you know, too wristy, too much on the inside. So I'd prefer to see someone trying to relax and get rid of the tension, but actually make a movement they would like to see in the golf swing. So let's do one more, just working on that takeaway movement, because I know if I can start to get this bit correct, it's a lot easier to get to the right position, in my opinion, at halfway back and then to the top. So rehearse it, check, club back, pull the trigger. Trigger. And it's just want to feel like it's an automatic thing in the golf swing. That was lovely, actually. Struck that one better than the first, but nice ball flights from both of them. Felt very connected in that first movement, and I know if we can get that takeaway movement, the first few feet of the golf swing correct, it's going to make it so much simpler to get the rest of it in place, to make a simpler, better downswing position that's more repeatable. If this video has helped, please hit the thumbs up, share it with as many golfers as you can, and consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't done so already.